So, next in line in our Verbos demos is the multi-delay processor. It's a delay, a beautiful delay. You can deny these shiny LEDs are kind of mesmerizing. There are 8 taps. Each tap is available on its own output. And pretty much like the bark filter processor, you have 4 preset outs, the odd taps and the even taps, and also increasing and decreasing mix of taps. And there's also the manual mix, which is the mix of the sliders on the module. Then you have a delay time, 2 CV inputs to apply modulation on the delay time. You have a 3 input mixer with the main input mix and 2 separate input mix that you can just use to mix different signals. But if you don't plug anything into those, it takes the signal from the 8 tap and adds pitch shifting and reverb. So for a little background story, when I started modular, I really was taken with the Verbos aesthetics and I really wanted to have a full Verbos case. So I started with the complex oscillator, then the amplitude and tone controller and the multi-envelope, and I really liked them. But then I got lured away by all the new models you could have, and I was new to modular, so I wanted to try a few things, and I did. But when the multi-delay processor came out, by that time I didn't have any Verbos module left in my case, which was small. So I got the multi-delay processor and it really got me back into Verbos. This delay really blew my mind when it came out, it still does actually. But I really loved how it's inherently simple, but you have all these patch points and all these options and this beautiful tactile interface which you can play on. So the more you dig into the module, the more it reveals itself. And if you have a few support modules and other Verbos modules that obviously work very well together, you can really expand the basic scope of the module. So the multi-delay processor is a very specific kind of delay. I would suggest that if you're looking for a lush end-of-chain delay, you look elsewhere. There are plenty of crazy good delays. I personally love the El Capistan by Strymon. And actually, it's pretty commonplace for me to run the multi-delay processor in a more standard delay. However, if you're looking to add texture and a way to complexify your sounds, then the multi-delay processor is really useful. You can create rhythm with the different delay taps, and it's not clocked in any way, but it's really interesting to find the sweet spots with the delay time and then mess with this with the CV inputs. You can really go to town with the feedbacking options. If you have a filter or a filter bank, then I mean the sky is the limit with this thing. Okay, so let's start with something super simple to get the hang of how the multi-delay processor works. So what we have here is a super simple complex oscillator sequence. Here it is. What you're hearing now is just a dry signal. There's only the dry fader up. So to get any delay going, you just need to move any of the sliders. And they act as volume knobs basically for that tap. And you might wonder, where is the repeat knob? Where is the feedback knob? Well, that's the idea behind the delay, that it's open-ended. You can use any output and any input to act as feedback. So let's say we want to take the feedback from the tap number 7. We just have to put it back into any of the input of the mixer, and then the knob will act as our feedback knob. So as you can hear, there's feedback, but you can use any other output and still use the sliders. So there's an endless combination to be had here. And if you unplug this, these two are routed through effects, pitch shifter and reverb. You can also use one of the preset outs. and you'll get these more rolling delays because these take many more taps into consideration. It can get a bit overpowering, so watch out. So that's it for the super basic operation. Then you have the delay time, of course. The delay times goes quite short, but not exactly car plus strong short. But you can still get those metallic tones. I really like the way the delay reacts to the changing delay times, which is pretty nice because we have two CV inputs over that. So yeah, that's the delay at its most basic, and then we can do many more things with all those outputs, all those inputs, and we'll dig right now into a much more complicated patch. So let's switch to a wider angle to get a better look at the full patch. I've tried to go a little overboard with the multi-delay processor, using all the outputs, imparting stereo image and using feedbacks and also the followers. So you have to spend a little time with the multi-delay processor to fine-tune your patch. It's all about these narrow spots with your filter, with the feedback, and some areas are perfect too. You get really, it's perfect to fill the gaps in between your sequence and add texture and atmosphere. And if you run those things into further effects, or you blast it into a gigantic reverb, then you'll get crazy good atmosphere with, if you look at your source material, it's just 2 or 3 notes. So with that in mind, we have a short sequence from the voltage multistage. It's a few notes as usual. It's going into the complex oscillator, into the amp and tone, into the multi-delay processor. And then, so the first thing I did was taking 2 followers, going into the sequence selector and taking that to add an accent to my amp and tone to the cutoff. So let's listen to that. I'll remove the accent so we can hear the very basic sequence. So it is without the accent, and here it is with the accent now. Short bursts of followers into the amp and tone to open the cutoff. So I thought this is nice, but a cool thing you can do with the preset mix, because there's one increasing preset, it's like all the sliders are this way, and a decreasing one, it's like all the sliders are the other way. So if you mix those in stereo with the scan and pan, with one pan left and the other pan right, you get a crazy nice stereo image. You have a feeling that things are swirling around your head. So you can mix that with the main mix. So you have the swirling, but you also have the rhythm that you created with the sliders. Then I took one preset tap, sorry, and this goes into the sequence selector and then into the bark filter processor with all the bands closed, and then the bark filter processor goes back into the multi-delay processor. So let's bring that up. Let's keep it subtle for now. You can see the LEDs moving on the bark filter processor. That's the random sampling sending quantized randoms into the center. So the center is randomly moving. And the bark filter processor sequentially receives the even taps. And so depending on which bands of the bark filter are selected, your feedback will be different. Okay, so then I took the odd taps and I put that into the LXD. So with the LXD, we can have short percussive sounds out of the multi-delay processor. And so I sent a short sequence to the LXD, just 3 triggers, into the strike input. And because this would be too overpowering with bass by itself, I ran that into another high-pass filter, the WMD SSF MMF multi-mode filter. So I ran that into a high-pass. And then instead of going back into here, I thought as a short percussive sound, it would be nice to run into another effect. So it's going into the T resonator with an adapter cable. So let's bring that up. Starting to be a bit dubby, because we have on the T resonator we have of course the filters and delay. And we can always bring the reverb of the multi-delay processor to have some more atmosphere. And then we can bring some drums. So you can hear that just from 4 notes from the voltage multistage and a myriad of different ways to process the outputs and send accents. I mean, you almost have a full line for a track. You could obviously add more stuff or even process some of the other outputs in different ways, because now we also have all these outputs as well from the bark filter processor. Or if you're using a multi-mode filter, you can use some of the other outputs like the band pass or the high pass, or you can run that through a phaser. I mean, like I said, the sky is the limit. And there's such a complex chain of events that if you change the input signal in the complex oscillator, the whole thing is going to be changed. The slightest turn of knob can have an impact down the line. So it's nice to have something that's sufficiently moving and changing that you almost don't have to touch any knobs. That's why I love modular. Just have everything on the brink of collapsing, but still keeping it interesting. And as you can see, I'm not touching any knobs, but it's not really repeating. And I haven't even started to add effects from the boxes, but if you send that into reverb, if you send that into another delay, you have endless atmosphere. think you'll agree with me when I said that the preset mixes are great to have like a very nice stereo image. The whole point of the multi-delay processor is to create your own mix with the different faders, but the preset mix are really useful for feedback and also for stereo. It's not a stereo delay per se, but you can get this amazing stereo image. So yeah, that's another example. Let's do another one. So let's switch things up a bit and use the DFAM now as a sound source. So I have the DFAM going straight into the multi-delay processor. Let's hear it. I have some modulation going into the DFAM, namely an envelope into the VCA input to have accents. And I have a clock, obviously, and some fluctuating random that is slowly modulating the cutoff on the DFAM. And so it's going straight into the multi-delay processor. There's no delay here, it's only the dry signal. So let's bring some up. As I said previously, you have to find the right point where it sounds okay with the multi-delay processor, because the clock is actually an oscillator, so there's no way to clock that with an input trigger. And I think that's fine. It's great that way. You can definitely find cool rhythm. It brings you out of your comfort zone. And anyway, synth delay are great, but they're not always the best solution. You have to fill the gaps in between your notes, and if the delays is exactly at the same time, sometimes it's not exactly perfect. Like slightly off tap delay or delay you find by ear is, to me, very okay. Actually, I have absolutely no clock delay in here, and I don't miss any. So we have the tap number 6 coming in. Let's bring some pitch shifting, because this is a very low sound. Plenty of bass. I find that on these kinds of sounds, the pitch shifting can really add some texture. Not an overpowering pitch shifting like this, but if you mix it low, you have this sort of gnawing at your brain sound, you know? Very insectoid sounds. And so I've repatched a little feedback path, because what would be the multi-delay processor without feedback? So I have an even taps out, which is a mix all of the even taps, going into the filter input in the small noise and filter, and I'm taking the 3 highest bands into a sequential switch, the 151 by Doppler, and this is going into the LXD, somewhat similar to the previous patch we had going on. And so I'm sending triggers from the bin sec directly into the strike input of the LXD, and this is coming back into the multi-delay processor. So let's hear it. So you can hear these small feedbacks, and I really love these sounds. They're not obvious, you can hear them obviously, but it's not at the forefront of the mix. It's just more texture, more bizarre ambience. Let's have some stereo in there. flow into the mix. I've added, same as before, a feedback path through the bulk filter processor. This time the bands of the bulk filter are animated by the CVP of the voltage multistage and going back into the first input. If you want to use the pitch shifting and the reverb, or either or one of those, but still have a way to route feedback path, you can obviously mix your inputs before hitting the input here, so you have access to the pitch shifting. This patch is not widely different from the other one, but in terms of technique, but the sound is completely different. And I know maybe that delay is not the best thing to put on very bassy sounds like this, but I mean, you can throw the rule book out of the window when it sounds this good. A pretty cool bonus feature of the multi-delay processor is how you can use it as a sound source without any input. So, because it is a delay and there's a feedbacking circuit inside the delay with the reverb and the pitch shifting, if you just crank those, it will repeat whatever's noise is present into your system, even if you can't hear it, it's there. And so it's going through the reverb and the pitch shifting, and every time it's getting bigger and bigger, so it's feedbacking upon itself. And so it will create these beautiful washes of sound. To do so, just bring the reverb up and the pitch shifting as well, and you will see the LED activate as soon as the sound is powerful enough. It's hard to control, but you can hear it grow. Watch out for distortion, because the input mixer is overloading inside. And then by moving the delay time, you can create these sort of pitches. Very creepy. So it's always growing, and that's directly into the mixer, but let's have it through a filter and then some effects. After all, it's an effects sound source. As I said, it's really hard to control, but maybe a sort of compressor can be useful here. You can also try to just have it run into a VCA and use it as a voice. A bit like the Verb by Make Noise. You can sort of create these metallic percussions with it. But just by itself, it's really nice. I like to run it through a phaser and just have more delay and reverb beside that. Let's put some El Capistan and reverb. Don't know about you, but I could hear this pitch shifting for a while. There's a pretty cool movie called Annihilation where you can hear in the soundtrack towards the end sounds like this. The OST was made by Geoff Barrow. It's a great listen. Geoff Barrow of Portishead makes great soundtrack as well. And yeah, these glassy, inharmonic, strange sounds, they work really well in the movie. I have no idea if that's the multi-delay processor, probably not. There's a million ways to get these sounds, but it's a great ambience machine as well if you use it as an instrument. Cool little bonus. Okay, so let's wrap this up with the multi-delay processor with the Alphabase. We'll be using a very short percussive sound from the clap channel, but it's actually playing some sort of ride or crash into the multi-delay, and see how we can try to make cool stuff with the CV inputs. We haven't really touched those yet. So let's bring the sound. So let's cut the reverb. This is the sound. So let's bring some background beats. And yeah, let's bring the reverb. It sounds good. Adds a lot of texture if you have a compressor, side chaining this to the kick. Can really pump in a very nice way and have bring some texture to a track. You can use the pitch shifting as well. And then you try to find somewhere where it sounds good. Number 4 is okay. Create a new rhythm. And so the CV inputs on the delay time, I have a follower from tap number 7, going into the sequence selector, advanced by the voltage multistage, and it's going back into the CV input number 1. So let's bring that up. You can hear the artifacts of the delay going shorter or longer, speeding up, slowing down. And then going into the reverb, obviously. And then, because it's an oscillator clocking the multi-delay processor, we can actually FM that clock with another oscillator. And get these lovely crunchy delays. Give me another delay where you can do that. Maybe you won't use that in every patch, but it's insanely cool to know that you can FM the delay. There's sort of a melody being created here by the pitch shifting. Pretty unique and amazing. So yeah, multi-delay processor, pretty cool, isn't it? So that's it for me for the multi-delay processor. It's a fantastic module. I love it. Like I said in the intro of this video, it's the one that pulled me back into this Verbos world. I think it's amazing for texture. I use it every time I turn on my modular. It's part of my sound. I always run it through other delays, and I love how open-ended it is, and you can never run out of ideas with it. There's always something you haven't tried or a different feedback path. Basically, you can create entire tracks out of basic sound source with it, and it's a bit like the Bark filter processor in that regard. And I think these two go really well together, and it's maybe why they look so alike too. It works really well for the kind of loopy techno I enjoy playing on my modular. It's great for ambiances, ambient music as well. It's pretty dumb to say that a module can only do that kind of music. Obviously you could do probably anything on this, but for me it works pretty well with loopy, repetitive stuff. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I've just set up a Patreon page where you will find samples from this video and the Bark filter video, and of course every video to come. So every sound you hear in the video is chopped and ready to use in your own music. There's also, if you want, a way to set up modular lessons with me one-to-one over Zoom, where you will see the modular and we can go over how I do loopy techno if you have questions about that. If you're new to modular, I know it can be confusing and daunting at first, so I will try to answer your questions too. We can go over the basic building blocks and what you need to create a good system, something that works for you, that helps you make music. So hit me up on Patreon if you have any questions in mind, modular related, anything you like. I'm always available to answer your questions. I know it's incredibly corny, but if you like the video, don't hesitate to subscribe, like, comment on the video. It really helps these to come up when people are looking for modular content on YouTube, so yeah, I'll be glad if you can do that. And with this, I'll see you next time with another modular video. Bye.